just knowing that we are, a creative, magnificent force of energy. And I believe the more we root and understand who we are and also root for ourselves, it's really remarkable what we can bring forward.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of It Takes Grit with me, Rebecca Louise. Oh my goodness, I feel like the energy is like so different. Normally I'm just like fired up. I'm just like big, like shouting, but like I just feel like so centered and just like in awe of this amazing woman's presence. Natalia Benson, welcome to the It Takes Grit podcast. I am so appreciative of you. And I'm so glad that this is our session today for you to be on the podcast. Everything is timing. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, babe, I am so honored. Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely adore you, respect what you do so much. So this is such an honor.
And Natalia is all things mysticism, women empowerment, astrologer. And a lot of my community, we started reading The Universe Has Got Your Back in January.
Yes.
And we started to just really dive into this area. And I'm new to it. Like I'm new to the meditation, the astrology, but it just fascinates me. And I want to learn more because I love how the universe works. And I'm always looking back to see how the dots got connected. And today we're going to really like tap into that more. So you guys are in for a real treat. It's going to be a really special, beautiful, like therapeutic for all of us. I need this as well. Natalia's had an interesting week. So we're here for you, community. We've got you. So first of all, Natalia, just tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, how you got started, and how you got to where you are today, because you are just crushing it right now.
Oh, babe, thank you so much. Well, first and foremost, I am from Phoenix, Arizona. I lived in LA for 12 years. I'm now over here in Palm Springs. I am a desert girl. I love the beach, but I just have this connection to the desert. So just to keep it very short and sweet, this was never the plan. I never planned to be like a spiritual teacher of sorts. And the magic and the interesting point of my career is that I'm very, very committed and passionate to teaching women about financial empowerment, creating their own revenue streams, cultivating conscious business. Now, to get here, well, first and foremost, when I left college, I was living in Los Angeles, newly living in Los Angeles, and I was already 5 years into my first business, and I was a cocaine addict at the time. So basically, I was steeped in so much darkness and really healing from a lot of trauma. I didn't realize I was healing from trauma. That was a coping mechanism of mine at the time, but all the while, as I was kind of dipping into all of the shadow parts of my personality, looking back, they always say hindsight's 2020. I look back to that period of my life and actually realize that that was the catalyst for all of my spiritual growth. Now, I'm not saying you have to go have some cataclysmic event like an addiction or something of that nature. But for me, what it really did was I went so deep into my own darkness and just made a very strong decision. Like, this is not where I want to live. This is not my life. This is not the potential of my life. This is not the quality of my life. There is so much more. And so I really dove into yogic practice. That was the first thing that really helped me heal from having an addiction. I completely transformed my diet and, really cold turkey, stopped all my partying, stopped the drinking, disassociated from a certain group of people in my life. And, throughout my 20s, I was essentially doing spiritual practice, doing inner work, and building businesses. I have literally had like 25 businesses. I've had a lot of businesses in my 20s. And, and here I am today. I am so deeply, like I'm skipping a lot of details, but just, I just turned 34 back in April. I am, running a business that not only is remarkably successful and conscientious, but also just so aligned with my heart. I'm in a remarkable relationship. Like, I don't mean for it to sound all Pollyanna, but like it really is that fucking good. And I really have worked quite hard to create this chapter of my life. And all of this for me is rooted in inner work. When I say spiritual work, what do I mean by that? I don't mean I never, I always like to invite people into this work and into these practices in a relatable way. I never want it to sound too woo. I absolutely love Gabby Bernstein. The Universe Has Your Back is one of my favorite books. And, really, I believe that spiritual work is rooted in self awareness. It's really coming to understand that we are more than just our mind and our body. We are a soul. We are an infinite energy. We are created in the likeness of a creator, whatever you call it, whether you call it God, whether you call it the universe. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need you to have a specific name for it. Just knowing that we are a creative, magnificent force of energy. And I believe the more we root and understand who we are and also root for ourselves, it's really remarkable what we can bring forward. I'm very into astrology. I teach natal chart astrology as a tool for self-awareness. So, Rebecca, you are a Sagittarius. What's your sign again?
Taurus.
Taurus. I always think you're a fire sign. We got to look at your chart.
I know, I was looking at your stories the other day and I was like, wow, like you had this whole chart. And I was like,
Yeah.
I need this right now. Like, please just tell me, universe, like how this works.
Yes, we're going to look at your chart.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about that. And it's funny because we're just getting to know each other. We met at a mastermind, and when you're telling your story here, I didn't know that you had an addiction, and me
Yeah.
too. Like, I
Yes.
was, for a long period of time, I was using cocaine as a coping mechanism, and I
Yes.
was using it just to, like, I was doing it every day, and people didn't know. I was like a functioning fuck up, right? It's just like, I was a functioning fuck up on a train wreck, right? And it was just, it was crazy to look back that was like my coping mechanism. How did you get started in like the party industry? Like, what happened? Like, how did you get started? Because I'm always like, who exposed you? Like, how did it start?
Oh my God. I mean, what's really ironic? I actually live about 30 minutes away from where it all started. I actually went to Coachella when I was about 22 years old. And here's the thing. I heard this on a podcast recently. This woman I don't want to go too deep into it because I could go down an amazing rabbit hole with this. But basically, she was saying that when you have an addiction to anything, whether it's food, sex, like drugs, even like over exercise, whatever, it is so often rooted in your desire to heal a traumatic event. And you're kind of like brushing over it, we'll say, or like kind of overexerting yourself to kind of get away from this root cause of pain. And so for me, I didn't realize that I had intimacy issues, social anxiety, like all of these things rooted in this severe lack of trust of people, severe lack of trust of men, like all of the things. And so basically, I went to Coachella and I remember I was drinking quite a lot of alcohol at this time, but I'd never touched drugs. I mean, I wasn't one of those people. It's funny, I've found that I've met many people in LA. They're like, I'm over partying. I did that in high school. And like, I did nothing of the sort. I like moved to LA. I was 22 years old, like living on my own essentially. And then like I just started. And the reason I got so into it is wasn't because I'm immoral. It was very simply, which is what many people will say if you have an addiction. It's like, no, you're not. It's like, actually, I believe you're seeking healing. You're seeking a feeling of connection. That's what I wanted. I wanted to feel at peace with myself, at peace with the universe. And I almost say that drugs are like a cheat code where you're just like, boop, 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 boop. Okay, like I got the feeling. Okay, I don't feel anxious anymore. Like it was just sort of like, an interesting, and I'm speaking recreational drugs. Like it was this feeling that I hadn't felt before where I felt okay with myself. I felt comfortable in social situations. I felt connected to like this higher energy. But of course, that didn't last. It got very dark, and I very similar to you. I was functioning. No one really knew. I mean, the people that I was partying with, they didn't like, they were like, no, this is great. Like, there's nothing wrong here. But, my family didn't know. I was very good at hiding it. But eventually, I write about this a bit in my book, but I just had a bit of a, come to Jesus moment, like not literally, but just where I was like, okay, I'm going to ruin my life. Like I was on the fast track and not going nowhere very, very fast. And so it really just came through a series of very intense events where I just felt my self-awareness and my soul just knocking at the door of my consciousness, being like, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep going with this and like essentially kill yourself and hurt your body and like, just drive your life into the ground? Or are you going to do more? Because I know you're here to be more. And so that was, there was one key moment that really I let go. And like I said, I don't always suggest to do it the way that I did it, but it worked for me. I ended up finding someone who was teaching they were doing a yoga teacher certification or something, or like a yoga training. I don't even remember. And it was like, I went and started practicing yoga religiously. So it was almost like I went from one extreme to the other. And I didn't really find moderation until my later 20s. But that saved me, truly saved me, because I started finding what I was seeking in drugs, I could actually create through my own body and my own energy through work. So the work for me was yoga. The work for me was meditation. The work for me was eating well. The work for me was reading. The work for me was, going full tilt into my business and being creative. So it was like, I just had to find, and I still have like a bit of an addictive personality, but now it's like, I'd say I'm like addicted to kombucha and like working, it's like healthier addictions, but I still have a very like intense personality. I've just learned to channel it into things that are healthy and proactive, we'll say.
As you're talking, you're literally just talking like my story. I'm just like sitting here, like inside smiling. I'm like, I have a very intense personality too. I have a very addictive personality. And like, I just needed to channel my energy into something else. And it's funny
That's
because you
it.
talk about like wanting that connection, and it does, but it's such a fake connection. Like
It's totally
drugs,
fake.
such
It's
a
not
fake
real.
connection. It doesn't last. It's not
No.
real, but it's just a quick fix. And two,
Yeah.
I was pushing something that happened to me in my teens that I was like, we spoke about this when we talked about intimacy, and
Yes.
I shared with you all of the stories that had happened to me. And it's like,
Yes.
yeah, obviously that's why I was doing it, because I'd never spoken about those things before.
Yes.
So I was going to something else to try and heal myself with,
Yes.
getting some serotonin real quickly to my brain. And then you feel like
Yes.
shit the next day because you've all
Yes.
your 5-HTPs just like gone out of your body.
It's gone. And that was so powerful, Rebecca, when you and I sat down, started talking, realizing how similar, like obviously unique circumstances, but very similar stories. And here we are, it's like we've learned to channel, obviously heal and actually do that work, but also like I look at it as a transfer of energy. I see addiction as like you simply, and I had somebody that I dated in my 20s. He would go to AA and I'd go with him just to go check it out. I was already like basically sober, but I didn't really call myself that. And I would just go just to kind of like experience and listen. And I realized, wow, all everyone's speaking about here, to me, is like a transfer of energy. Like instead of like getting your energy from this external source, it's like you cultivate an energy from inside you by choosing new ways to relate to your life, if that makes sense. And yeah, our stories are very similar and we have the same. That's why I always think you're a fire sign too, because I always feel, I was like, Rebecca just seems like I'm so excited to look at your chart because you're definitely a Taurus, but like you have like powerful fire because you're just like on, let's go. Like I'm excited to look.
Yeah, I'm excited for our like stories just to mesh even more, like as we get to like know each other more and
Yes.
over time. This is a
Yes.
broad question, but it's kind of one thing that I want to open with is like, how do you feel the universe works? How do you feel like, what's your like feeling on it? Like how, and you know, it's so funny because we come into this world, we're created for a reason. You know, I just had Dave Hollis on the podcast and he was
Nice.
talking about, you know, you're here for a reason, you're your creation. But
Mm,
it's like when we really start to like think about like the universe, like it can be like, oh my God, like it's so overwhelming, there's so much stuff. But like
totally.
if you could just like express, like, what do you feel about the universe? What do you feel about your own existence and people's creation?
Oh, I love this question. Like, it's interesting. I feel like there definitely is a time where I exactly what you're saying. I would have felt that the universe is very broad, open space, kind of, right? There's a couple of things I want to begin with, and I'll do my best keep it as concise as possible. But basically, first things first is just to remember. So there's a saying in the esoteric, as above, so below, so within, so without. Like essentially, that's why I'm like so big on like the inner work and self-awareness, because essentially like what we experience in our external has a root internally, and if there's something we want to shift or heal, we get to work on it first with ourselves. So just something to like work with there. Now, the universe, this is a way I love to look at the universe, is first off that the universe is like a deeply loving force of energy. We can look at the universe from a physics perspective, and then we can look at it from a mystical spiritual perspective. To me, all of existence is a dichotomy. So we cannot know what is light without knowing what is dark. We cannot know what is beautiful without knowing what is ugly. We cannot know what is happiness. We cannot know happiness without knowing sadness. So if we can look at this world as very dualistic, because it can be easy to look around, we see injustice, we see inequity, we see things going on. We're like, how the fuck can this exist in a loving, safe, friendly universe? And so when we get down to it, we live in this. I'm going to get real freaking far left, far woo with you guys. So stay with me. But essentially, we can look at Earth as a place of learning, and it is one of infinite amounts of dimensions in this universe. This is an infinite universe. Like our brains cannot even fully comprehend like what if we could, we would be overwhelmed, and probably the hard drive would like overheat, right? That's why like you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is 10% or 5%. Your subconscious is an oceanic 90 to 95%. Your subconscious knows everything, everything. But if you are aware of every single thing going on at this moment, so just tune into this moment right now. If you could feel like exactly what your best friend was doing at work and what like 65,000 people were doing, and like a state, like you get what I mean. If you could perceive every single thing happening at every single moment, you would go freaking nuts. So hence we have a filtration system. So here's the thing. Earth is a school. Earth is a place that I believe our soul incarnates to have lessons, to have experiences, and to see if we can still love, to see if we can still have compassion, to see what kind of growth we can still sustain, even while experiencing challenge, pain, and all of the things that exist in a dichotomous experience, right? So the universe itself, like, I believe that we have a deep relationship to the universe. I think that the more you seek to speak to the universe, as maybe Deepak Chopra would call the unified field, you see that you're a part of this infinite web of energy. But again, if you're aware of that at all moments, how would you brush your teeth? How would you take care of your dog or your child? It's like we also live in these finite spaces of, let's say, consciousness, because to perceive everything and all the possibilities and all of the energy, I think it would be a lot or too much. So here's the thing. How can we connect more deeply with the universe? How can we cultivate a deeper relationship? Are you willing to sit in silence? Are you willing to connect more with nature? Are you willing to do things? I mean, even the work that you teach, it's like exercise. It gets you out of your mind. It gets your body system working in a way that is empowering. And the more that you can find ways just to be in a space of oneness with yourself, the more you will feel a resonance with the energy that's always available to you. And so I always like to say, like, what do you want to see? Do you want to see more love in the world, in the universe? Well, be that love. Do you want to see more hatred and pain? Go ahead and be that hatred and pain. Like, none of us are perfect. You don't have to be all one or all the other. We are just as dichotomous as this existence. We have light, we have shadow. But what I would say is be and exist the way you want to perceive the universe around you, the world around you. Put into the world what you want to get back. There are universal laws. So, this is a really trippy thing that is like really fun to talk about. And I suggest if any one of your listeners are fascinated by this, definitely like do some research. But basically, just like we have the law of gravity, it's the only law I know in this, the law of gravity, maybe like, I don't know what the law of oxygen is called, periodic table. Like, we have certain like laws that we abide by, right? It's like the law, we'll just use the law of gravity as example. Nobody gets away from that law. Like, I don't care, unless you're like, in like a NASA spacesuit and you're going off the planet, like nobody like bypasses the law of gravity. So there are laws of the universe too. There's actually known to be 12. And so these 12 universal laws, I mean, just to give you some examples, there's like the law of polarity. Oh my God, I'm like spacing on them. There's a lot of them, and I actually haven't looked at them in a little while. But one of my favorite laws is, I'm spacing on the name, but essentially the idea that what you put in is what you get back. Like, sometimes I think we can exist solely from our minds. And so we think, oh, okay, like I did this, who freaking cares? You know what I mean? Like I did this to this person, who cares? Like, there's no God, there's no this. It's like, so even if you don't believe in God, or you don't believe in, or let's say something of that nature, it doesn't matter. These laws still exist. And this, although things can seem chaotic in the universe, there's perfect order, and the laws are what assist us in having perfect order. And so, one thing is like, I'll just use this example. If you are kind, you will receive that kindness back. If you put love into the world, you will receive it back. Does it mean like it's instant? Not always. This is a whole philosophical conversation we could get into. But the reason why I love to talk about the universal laws is because it just reminds us that we are, like, for lack of a better term, like, we're not alone, and nothing is really so random. Like, we are taken care of, even when it seems like we're not, because there's a law in the universe called the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. Say that 10 times fast. And the idea is that as a human being, you can learn and evolve through the challenges you go through. But again, that's a choice. Like, how we can go through stuff and feel like we're cycling around the same problem over and over and over again. But really, that issue or whatever is coming up, it's there for you to heal and grow through it, right? What do they say? Like, grow through it. So you go through it so you can grow through it. It's like, don't bypass your stuff. And the way I see it too, just taking it a step further, and I personally feel, this is a personal opinion that's proven true in my life, at least. I believe when we're here to help others live a better life, we live a better life. So when you go through a problem, like I speak about I speak about the addiction I experienced very openly. I speak about past experiences of mine very openly, because I just want anyone to know that, number one, nobody's life is fucking perfect. And secondly, you can always grow through what you go through. You can always heal. And then it can most likely be something you help someone else heal with as well. So I hope I did as succinct a job as I could. And that's really just my perspective on the universe. Doesn't mean it's the perspective, but I would say, as I mentioned, just to iterate one more time, if you want to have a deeper connection with the universe or God or whatever you perceive, like, begin to find ways to, first off, take care of yourself, be quiet with yourself, and you can literally speak out loud. Like, I do this in my work. We do a lot of very woo-woo stuff, and I say that to poke fun. Like, I don't see it as woo-woo. It's very dear to me, but it's like, I encourage my students, like some people call it prayer, some people call it affirmations, some you can call it whatever you want, but begin to have a conversation with the universe. It will respond to you. It is a very active field of energy. And I think that the more we engage with it, the more that it engages with us, and life becomes extremely, extremely magical.
It's so beautiful. And it's like the challenges that we want the challenges because that's going to allow us to grow. It's
Yes.
interesting because, the last couple of days, I've been getting some negativity on TikTok, and
Mm,
somebody blew up. And the crazy thing is, it's guys, it's not
mm.
even women, right? And it's these guys that, are taking the mickey out of one of my videos. I did an arm workout and I didn't use weights in it. And they're like, oh, and other people are using the video, and it's just so funny how then people are commenting on mine like fake trainer, whatever. And 5 years ago, it would have like
Gosh.
hurt me so much. And I'm going, what do I get to learn from this? Like,
Mhm.
maybe I need to make my content better. Maybe I need to, show that I do have my certification. Like, I'm like,
Mm.
ooh, this is exciting, rather than, yes, it hurts. I'm a human being. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
I've got people freaking commenting. I'm blocking people, and I'm deleting the comments because and they're like, oh, you're deleting comments. I'm like, yeah, that's not the energy. And you're not the
Yes.
people that are here for my page. And I'm not even going to
Yes.
retaliate. And my any
Yes.
responses would be, I'm sending you love. Like, it's not
Yes.
like, oh, I need to justify me and I need to show you that I do have my
Yes.
certificate. I'm like, my goodness, like I have so much compassion for those
Yes.
people that they must be
Yes.
hurting so much that they're spending their day commenting on somebody else's who they almost like you wouldn't say it to someone's face. And it's like you get to grow through that. And it's not to say that it would
Yes.
never hurt. Of course it hurts. It's
Yes.
never nice when someone
Yes.
says it. But if
No.
you've worked on yourself and you're so connected and you understand that the universe is giving you a message, like these
Yes.
people are giving me a message through the universe. Like maybe I need to update my website because I have a big job coming up and I need to make sure that my certification is up to date. I'm like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Because my certificate right now, during COVID, we couldn't go and do my test again. And you have to renew your NASM. I'm like, this is a sign because I know
Mm.
something big is about to happen. I'm about to get a contract with somebody huge. And I know that these people are giving me that to go and make sure that I renew it. And it's like, you have to think of it like that because otherwise,
Oh.
it's like, oh, poor me. Why does this keep happening? This isn't fair. And you're like, no, this is fucking great. Like, thank you so much for reminding me to go get my certification renewed,
You
because
know,
something big is going to happen.
I love this so much, babe. Like when I say thank yous, I really am into practicing gratitude. When I say thank you, I say thank you for the people that love me, and I say thank you for the people who've hurt and challenged me too, because those people, like, yeah, and oh my God, like putting yourself out there online, having a big presence, it's not even a matter of if, but when, like you're gonna get you're gonna be on the other end of someone suffering. Like it's like I had a client who told me that her brother, he used to troll people on Twitter. And the reason he did that was because he was in so much pain. He was suffering from like unspeakable anxiety. And that was a release for him, was to go on and just anonymously troll people. I'm like, okay, let's find some tools. But also, it's just like you and I talking about drugs. That was a tool we were given. It was a tool that is like not so much acceptable, but it is a tool that people use to diffuse pain. Doesn't mean it's a proactive or empowering tool. No, but it's available. The same is with shit like this. Like I see it all the time. I got very bullied when I was younger and by boys. And it was really interesting because I knew from a very young age, like I knew all their family situations, which was weird. Like I've always been a bit of a self-aware kid. I was never super spiritual, but I was very self-aware. And I just was like, oh yeah, well, I know so-and-so's parents are getting divorced. I know so-and-so is going through. It's like, it just sort of gave me this context of like, why are they being why are they being like this to me? And it's like, well, my awareness was like, well, because they're hurting and and but then it is the job of an awake being or on a self-aware soul, self-aware person to then exactly what you're saying. Like this is preparing me for something fucking huge. And thank you. Because that shit always passes. It's just like it's an energy. The only sustainable energy is love. Think about throughout our history, anything rooted in hatred, fear, despotism, it burns out. Maybe it lasts a while, but it burns out because the basic essence, this goes back to my theory about the universe, is that the basic essence of the universe is love. So everything else burns out. People evolve. This is just a random factoid. I'm obsessed with Vikings. I'm very into past lives. I would like to think I had a time there because I love that show on History Channel was like the coolest show to me, but very intense. And long story short, that used to be one of the most warring, I mean, truly inhumane what they would do to their captives and the people they warred with. I remember reading an article a year ago or something that that section of the world, Norway, Sweden, like the Scandinavian countries, happiest, number one, happiest countries in the entire world and most peaceful. And I was like, and I know this might sound like a silly example, but I think it just reminds that humans that we can evolve, we can heal and shift. So, anyways, just taking it 6 layers deep, but I I'm proud of you for seeing it that way because that is actually what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm. What do you do to keep the faith that the universe does has your back, that it is working? Because sometimes, you said it earlier, we want that instant gratification. When you give love, you can't expect it back right away. But if you're like, hey, it's been a while, or maybe someone's listening right now, they're like, I feel like I'm doing everything right and I'm on the right track and I'm putting stuff out there, but I'm just not seeing it yet. Like, how do you maintain that faith and keep going?
Well, first off, I invite all of us to let's get off the right and wrong track when it comes to our relationship with faith, when it comes to our relationship with the universe. I just was working with a client recently who's just been going through a ton of shit. And he's like, I'm doing everything right. I'm like doing this and doing that, and I'm not drinking anymore. And why is the universe doing this? And I was like, honey, no. It's we got to get off the right wrong track. Like, I mean, if anything, like I would say tune in and be like, does this empower me? Does this disempower me? Do I want to live a happy, peaceful life? Do I want to live a life where I know I'm not living into my happiness or into my full potential? So ask those kinds of questions because the truth is nothing that ever happens is a reward or a punishment. It's all experiences, right? It's like, and that's hard to say. And I never want to offend anyone. Like I have been through like there's too much I could even say on this pod. Like we don't have enough time. So I never mean to say things that sound like I'm coming from a space of total neutrality or bypassing. No, I truly believe, and this is just from me growing through what I've gone through, is what can this teach me? How can this deepen my faith? The universe does not exist on an instant gratification basis based on your expectations. Like there is like I think what's so powerful is practicing faith. Like I just heard a quote the other day, and again, I'm spacing it. It's Mercury retrograde, so I'm just going to give myself a pass on remembering specifics. But basically, like it's something about like essentially practicing faith. Like you practice faith like even when you have no proof, because if you need the proof, that's not faith. Like what is faith? Like, and it's, I'll be very transparent with you guys. Just yesterday I had a guest on and I was in a space of, I told her blatantly, I said, you have no idea. I said, I so often do not trust the universe. I don't trust God. I said, I really struggle. And she worked with me on that because it doesn't matter how spiritual you are, air quotes. It doesn't matter how much you feel you're on the right track. We are all human and we are all here, like where we're doing the work of being human, and it's not always easy, and it's very easy to lose your faith. It's very easy to lose your footing. It's very easy to feel like there's nothing kind of guiding you, but that's part of the game of this, right? Like let's look at a truth that I really tuned into yesterday in this session that I had. Like, and I've heard this from a couple different teachers as well. Just imagine that you have a team of let's say energetic beings. You can call them angels, you can call them guides, you can call them whatever you want, your ancestors, whatever it may be. You have beings that love you so much and they are guiding you from the other side. If you ever want to like, if I don't know if like I have to convince anybody of this, but think of, even I'm not into ghosts and like paranormal stuff. I'm like such a baby, but like if you ever just want to be reminded that there's more than just this three-dimensional stuff. Sorry, Tara, my dog thought someone was at the door. If you ever want to be reminded that there's more than just this body you have and this, what you see and feel and hear, just know there's so much beyond. Like nearly every ancient civilization has evolved and grown and existed with the idea that there is reincarnation, like they have ancestors, there is that there are angels, that there's a god, there's order in the universe, a spiritual order in the universe. So just know that with our sort of modern perspectives, it's just not something that's, I'd say, as mainstream or as like really as that's really taught to us throughout our life. So it can be hard to be like, wait, but is there more than this? Like all I see is like what I see, on Instagram, or that I have a job and I have to get a paycheck and like all this stuff. It can be so enticing just to believe that that's really it. So to me, we'll go back to this idea, but that is like practicing faith. I believe it's found in stillness. It's also found in the challenges of your life. It's found in, for me it was yoga, for you it might be meditation, for you it might be your workouts. It's like I believe everyone finds God, everyone finds the universe in their own unique way that works for them. They call it their own unique name and they access it in their own remarkable way. So practicing faith, like a practice that you can do is like write down a problem you have in your life right now. Like one thing that you're like, how is this going to get solved? Like really just be honest with yourself. Be like, how is like this thing drives me kind of crazy, or it bothers me that it's not like there's no completion to it. And I invite you to give it up to the universe. Give it up to like whatever you want to call it. I'll just say the universe for now. Give it up to universe. Give it up to a higher energy. Just say, "Hey, I don't know if you're real. I don't know how I feel about you, but just like I have this problem. I don't know what to do about it. If you could assist me or guide me, I do suggest in a gentle way." The universe responds. I would suggest using the word gentle because it's powerful. It's like a tsunami wave, truly, especially if you want help. It will often show up to help you, and it can come in ways that you're just like, wait, this is a lot. But I always say practice gentleness. I used to get my universal lessons in intensity because at the time I needed it. And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm going to start to ask for my lessons and for help in a gentle way. And you can find the subtle ways that the universe speaks to you, the subtle ways that it's trying to get your attention. Synchronicity is like a term, I believe, coined by Carl Jung. Like synchronicity, I believe, is the language of the universe. It's a way that lets you know, it reminds you, like, hey, trust me, have faith. Know I'm here. Know I'm responding to you. And so I would just invite you guys to try that. Like, I have this thing in my life. I'm going to acknowledge it and I'm going to give it up because I don't know what the heck to do with it. I don't know the solutions. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. There's a term, let go, let God, let go, let universe. Just
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. See what comes to you and pay attention to just the little signs and signals that you get. Because the truth is, the universe is always seeking to communicate with you. It's always seeking to whisper truth to you. For me personally, I find that truth being in nature. I love the ocean. Like I'm a beach girl through and through. And I obviously love the desert. I love staring at the mountains. I mean, not that I have time to do much of these things, but I make time to remember those subtleties and to remember that I'm taken care of. And when I'm really in a space of like uncertainty or suffering, like that's when I usually really make the time to go out and get that connection and get that fill, because your mind can drive you crazy and your mind can create a lot of suffering. So you got to find ways to be beyond your mind. That's why we were addicts. We were just looking for a way to be beyond our mind.
Mhm.
And now we found healthier ways to be beyond the mind. So I really hope that helps. That's a very long-winded answer, but I hope that helps.
It's beautiful. And it's like when you're in your head, you're dead. It's like you got to sometimes bring it back to your
Mm,
heart. And there's always going to be moments where
yes,
you're going to question yourself. And it's interesting because this week,
yes.
I'm entering in an amazing partnership with two people that you know as well. And I'm super
Yes.
excited about it. And then I'm also looking at like my business and I'm like, why is this down? Like, why is this? And I'm like, when you said something great, like play the game and the long-term game. Right. It's like, it's look at
Yes.
your life as a whole. And I'm pretty sure
Yes.
that everybody listening to this right now is a different person now than they were this time last year.
Mm,
And that's what it's all about. It's like, if I look back to who I was just like 6 months ago, I'm like, I'm evolving, I'm different. And so I'm excited to look to the future and looking at everything as a whole. And I always say, like, when something's bad is going on in your life, and I've been saying this for, I don't know, I think for like 8 years, like your life is like this long, right? Well, we don't know when the end's going to be, but you
exactly.
have that one bad day, right? Where it, think about it. It's not even this big. It's like
Exactly.
it's not even this much. Like, and if you have your hands like out and you go, okay, well, the day I'm having right now, like in the grand scheme of things, it's like, look at your life as a whole and how do you want that to be and how do you want it to show up. And there's going to be days where you're going to question yourself and you're going to question the faith and you're going to question what's going on or why is this happening. But I love it if we look at it from like a whole and be like, this is just the journey that we get to live. And I think you just like touched on it perfectly. I know that you only have like 5 minutes left, but I just want to end like, what how can astrology help us and guide us? I feel like we need to have another podcast like about this.
Oh my God,
Someone's
let's
like
do it.
brand new. I mean, you've got an amazing course. Like, I'm in, I'm signing up for the whole thing. And we're going to put all of the links below because you guys are like, it's like you're just dangling a carrot to us. And we're like, just give us more carrot. Like, we just want more. We want all of it. We want the vegetables. We want the carrots and the tomatoes and all the things. Right. But, yeah, how does astrology help guide us?
So what I suggest, if you want to get into astrology, get to know your natal chart, horoscopes, the actual like term, when you break up the word horoscope, it's like the scope of the hour. So it's a small piece. It's a tiny piece, the sliver of the pie of astrology. To me, natal chart astrology, that's my jam. That's what I love to teach, because it focuses on you. So you can get to know like the basic nuances of your personality, how you function in a business context, a relationship context, an emotional intimate context, where your focus is meant to be this lifetime. Like if you ever feel like a little lost with your purpose or why you're here, go take a look at your chart. Like go look at your north node, take a look at your Jupiter placement. All of these things essentially signify the way I like to see it, what your soul, like, so what they say is that the natal chart is the soul's blueprint. So it's literally just like, you want to know how to build a house, well, you use a blueprint. You want to know how to build your life, well, use the blueprint, the intention of your soul. And astrology is one way. I love human design as well. I don't know as much about human design, but astrology is a tool to utilize for self-awareness, for self-compassion, and for self-direction. So, if you want to get started, I mean, obviously, I do have many, many courses. I even have a course membership that essentially is everything mysticism, astrology, tarot, business, money, relationships, everything is in there. But I also have a lot of free offerings on my YouTube. So I literally have, this is an older course, but it's been very popular. It's a navigating your natal chart course. So if you're like, okay, I just want to see what this astrology thing is about, you can totally cruise to my YouTube and find that it's like a 2-hour free course. It's amazing, and it just really walks you through the planets of your birth chart. Those are some, with the time that we have, we should definitely meet again, because astrology is it is truly the tool that woke me up to myself. It is such an empowering tool. And the way that I teach it, I like to say that I teach astrology empowerment, because I want you to see the tool of astrology as something that really like just impacts your life in a clear, loving, powerful way. It'll show you your shadow. It'll show you your shit too. She'll show you the things that you've got to work on, but that's important. Like, we're not here, like I said, we're not here to be all one thing or the other. And knowing what challenges you and also knowing your strengths makes you an unstoppable person. I think that self-awareness, like, is such a powerful key for creating the life that you want. And astrology is just a magnificent tool to begin. That's where I started. So yeah, it's my favorite thing to talk about.
Oh, amazing. Well, I feel like we've got this moment where we're just going to expand. But what I'm going to do is
Yes.
I'm going to put all of the details of everything that Natalia has going on, especially that YouTube video and that you just talked
Yes.
about. So where can everybody find you? Instagram, Facebook, where are you at?
Oh, babe, thank you again for this. It's been exquisite, and I just adore you. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity just to share my heart here. So I am very active on Instagram. It's just at Natalia_Benson, NataliaBenson.com. Those are really my two most. I'm like YouTube. You can just search Natalia Benson, but come and say hi to me on Instagram. Super active on there. And on my website, there's lots of free resources, all of my courses. I have a lot of incredible upcoming trainings. I train coaches, I train astrologers. I have a course creation course coming up pretty soon. So just really awesome stuff going on.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Natalia, for being on the podcast. We appreciate you. Guys, thank you for listening. Go give lots and lots of love for Natalia. She just poured her heart out to us all, and we will see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.